let's bring AI into the conversation because apart from all of your current duties at Motion, you're also the AI thought leader for the company. So I know AI sometimes can be a bit of a dirty word in the depending on who you're talking to in the creative world.
Yes.
But how are you guys at Motion integrating it? Because the technology's here, and it seems like it's something that has to be embraced, but managed to a certain degree as well.
Yeah, I've again, I love all things technical and filmmaking. As I think about creativity, and AI is like sits right in that space. So I really took it upon myself to be the do the initial research. It really started in the Chat GPT moment that woke everybody up. Kind of, we're about 3 years in now, almost to the it was November of what, 2023 or 22, November of 22,
Yeah,
I think
that's
is when
funny.
it happened. Anyway, yeah, so I've been really researching and implementing and experimenting with all the various platforms over the years. Um, and my goal was to kind of approach it with curiosity and skepticism. It was fascinating and magical. I think everybody remembers the first time they kind of saw or read what AI or generative AI was doing. Seemed like a kind of magic trick that seemed impossible and seemed very threatening. You could kind of feel the ground shifting beneath your feet. Um, it was such a new paradigm. It really freaked a lot of people out. But I call it AI exposure therapy. I think it's so important to just get
I like that
past
term.
that,
I
past
do.
that and go, what is this thing? What can it do? And more importantly, what can't it do? And so that's been the spirit of how I brought it into the company, really creating a program where we would vet the tools, we'd make sure they were secure, we'd figure out a kind of a way to engage the tools within our security protocol, but really get people hands-on learning it. And in terms of the actual workflow, beyond just experimenting and training people, it's really been a huge tool primarily in previs. So pre-visualization, if we're pitching ideas, we might be creating a pitch deck. You can really get granular about the images that might represent the things you want to shoot. We certainly used it to bring some of those images to life with image to video. In a few cases, we've made kind of animatics or proof of concepts where
Mm.
we would use AI video to kind of bring to life a cut of the spot, or tease an element or a shot in that way. Um, and then there's some practical production things that have been really useful for clients that approve it, which is reformatting, outpainting, um, some of the editing, removal or cleanup. A lot of times, if we're making a poster, we're designing it vertically, but then let's say it's a poster that has, you know, um, a forest in the background, and then we need to make a horizontal banner. We can outpaint with AI the same trees, and that might take a human artist, you know, 3 days to do, and you can do it sort of in a prompt. It's the same people doing it. It just means we, can compress some of the time. We've used it for some elements for early comps. And when I say comps, I mean for posters or for some design development that we're doing. A lot of times those elements are helpful. You can cut and paste and get a layout, and then you kind of design over it. In some cases, we might hand paint or do an illustration over it, but, using Gen AI to kind of get some of the ideas on the board. And then there's a few cases where we've used it. For upscaling, large format things, out of home that needs to be printed large format. Some style transfers are helpful too. We work with a few brands outside of entertainment, and one of which is a restaurant brand, and they had all of these cocktails that were photographed in their restaurant, and they were all on brand with the
Mm.
appropriate garnish and all that. But we wanted to do this illustrative kind of menu, so we were able to take their brand approved photography and convert them to what looked like hand drawn illustrations, but
Okay.
they would stay on brand because it was based on the structure of the photograph. So that's a good example of something that's kind of style transfer or transformative. But I would say that it's a challenge to use, especially in entertainment marketing, because the major studios are global studios, and the rules around AI use are different around the world. There's still questions about copyright, chain of title. There's certain suits that are going on right now about the training data. Some of those suits are actually, the major studios are part of them. I think Disney, I think Warner Brothers just signed on, and Paramount are suing, say, Midjourney right now.
Mm.
So I think that's obviously obviously a problem. And I would say the other reason is their livelihood is based on great relationships with human filmmakers and storytellers. And I think that there is a real concern about AI uh, replacing human jobs. And look, that's always happened, right? I mean,
Mhm.
we were
It has,
talking
yeah.
about Avid disrupting the Editors Guild, right? Back when I started. But the thing that's different, and I think it can be simply put as this: here's a tool that only functions because it has trained on the sum total of human creativity for free under what's called the Fair Use Act, to create a for-profit tool to re-enter the market from which that training data came. And that is the elephant in the room. And I I don't think we're going to see a real equitable resolution to that, because the toothpaste is out of the tube, as they say. But it's not dissimilar to music when Napster ripped all the songs and threw them on servers for free. It's not that all that got taken down. It got digitized. Spotify, they figured out some kind of payment system. It did not favor the artist, but some new payment system was formed. I think we're going to start seeing some of that. We saw a $1.5 billion payout to authors in the Anthropic suit because they trained on novelists' work. And my wife, who has gone on to be a successful novelist, all of her novels were in the training data. So it really
Okay.
hit home.
Yeah.
She actually is part of that suit, and she's getting paid the
Jeez. Well, I'm
rest.
glad she's being compensated for it.
Yes, yeah. So anyway, you can see why the creative community could be uh, upset, kind of in an existential way, about the nature of AI.
I wonder if there was that kind of concern going back and looking at other aspects of film and production. Give you an example. So you take a movie like we'll take a movie like Star Wars where they built sets.
Mhm.
And then through the evolution of production work, sets were replaced with the green screen. And now the green screen is sort of being pushed out for, I think correct me if I'm wrong, I think the term is the volume. It's all these
Volume.
LED
Yeah,
screens. Yeah, the volume
that's right.
as well. And then you look at that and you're like, but you still required human capital, people to do that. And unfortunately, there are probably fewer set builders now. And then when you move to the green screen, you had post production, I guess graphic designers, you know way better than me who would do that. And then when it came to the volume, I'm sure a lot of those people transferred over, but even what they were doing still changed as well.
It's so true. And look, it's unavoidable. The technological process has always displaced um, workers or transformed the workforce into other jobs. Someone I remember early on in the AI argument, they were saying, there used to be elevator operators until there were electric elevators, right? Where
Yeah, that's
you didn't
true.
need a person standing there pressing your button or closing the gate, Um, but I think those comparisons break down because they don't really capture the tectonic shift that I think AI and generative AI in particular
Yeah.
represents to the creative community. And again, I go back to, it only functions because it has consumed the history of human creative output. And I think that's always kind of unsettled me as well. But again, I don't know that that's ever going to get resolved, because we have major corporations that have already created these foundational models from that training data. I think they'll, 1.5 billion payout for Anthropic is probably just cost of doing business. If on the other side of that, there's just some sort of payment situation, that some licensing deal that they start getting into, and it's pennies on the dollar to them probably in the end.
And Greg, if people want to follow your thoughts on AI, you publish
Yeah,
regularly on your Substack. So
I do.
we're going to put the link down there, but for anyone listening, call it out.
Yeah, it's called Future of Creativity. So futureofcreativity.substack.com. And yeah, I write regularly on the impact of AI in the film and advertising space. So it's combination of some think pieces. I have a piece up there about the AI elephant in the room around the training data, but I also run tests for how it can be applied to the commercial space and what the tools can and can't do. So there's a lot of kind of practical demos of the tools as they evolve.